The sky above Elwyn Forest tore open with a sound like reality itself screaming. Farmers working the Westfall border dropped their tools, eyes wide with terror as a golden rift split the clouds apart. From within that impossible breach, a figure plummeted toward Azeroth, trailing flames and crackling energy that had nothing to do with arcane magic, fell corruption, or holy light. The Stormwind Guard's alarm bells rang across the human kingdom as something that shouldn't exist in their world crashed into the forest with such force that ancient trees were flattened in a perfect circle, the impact crater visible from the city walls. When the dust settled, a man with wild black hair and orange clothing marked with strange symbols stood at the center of destruction, scratching his head with an expression of complete confusion. "Whoa," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent forest. "That was rougher than usual. King Kai's planet definitely doesn't look like this." This was Son Goku, and his arrival would change the balance of power on Azeroth forever. The first to investigate were not heroes, but simple town guards from Goldshire. Men and women who had faced murlocs and gnolls, but nothing that fell from dimensional rifts with the force of a meteor. Their captain, a grizzled veteran named Marcus Redfield, approached with his sword drawn but trembling. "In the name of the Alliance, identify yourself," he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady despite the otherworldly energy still crackling around the crater. Goku turned to face them, his expression brightening immediately. "Oh, hey there. Sorry about the mess. I'm Goku. I was training with Whis when something weird happened, and now I'm definitely not where I'm supposed to be." He looked around at the medieval-style armor, the distant castle spires of Stormwind, and the magical energy signatures that felt completely foreign to his Kai sense. "This isn't Earth, is it? Or even Universe 7 for that matter." The guards exchanged nervous glances, having no idea what this stranger was talking about. Universe 7? Training with Whis? The man's power was palpable even to those without magical sensitivity, like standing next to a bonfire that radiated strength instead of heat. Marcus made a decision that would spare his squad's lives. "You'll need to come with us to Stormwind. King Anduin will want to speak with anyone who can create a crater like this." Goku's face lit up with his characteristic enthusiasm. "A king? Sure, I'd love to meet him. Maybe he can help me figure out where I am and how to get home. Also, do you guys have food? That dimensional trip really worked up my appetite." The mention of food, something so mundane amidst the cosmic strangeness, actually helped the guards relax slightly. Whatever this being was, he seemed friendly enough. The journey to Stormwind became a procession as word spread of the stranger who fell from the sky. Citizens lined the streets, whispering and pointing as Goku walked beside the mounted guards, seemingly unbothered by the attention. He was too busy looking around with genuine fascination at everything. The dwarven-made street lamps powered by light crystals, the mages casually teleporting small objects, the priest healing a child's scraped knee with holy magic. "Your world has magic," Goku observed, his analytical combat mind already assessing what he was seeing. "But it feels different from ki or divine energy. It's more like it's being channeled from somewhere else rather than generated from within." Marcus glanced back, surprised by the insight. "You can sense the arcane? Are you a mage yourself?" Goku shook his head. "Not exactly. Where I come from, we use something called ki, life energy that flows through all living things. But I can feel different types of energy, and yours has this weird taint to some of it, like something's corrupting the natural flow." He was sensing the lingering field corruption that still touched parts of Azeroth, the shadow magic used by void-touched individuals, and the death energy that permeated the world since the Scourge's creation. Marcus's expression darkened. "You describe our world's burdens well, stranger. Azeroth has faced many corrupting influences over the millennia." They reached the gates of Stormwind Keep, where a reception committee had already assembled. At its head stood Lady Jaina Proudmoore, the Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras, and one of the most powerful mages on Azeroth, accompanied by several priests, paladins, and the SI-7 intelligence operatives who had been tracking Goku since his arrival. Jaina's eyes glowed with arcane power as she examined Goku from a distance, her magical senses probing the energy around him. What she found defied everything she understood about magic. The power radiating from the stranger wasn't arcane, wasn't void or light or death energy. It was something completely outside Azeroth's established cosmic forces. Yet it was undeniably real and immensely potent. "I am Lady Jaina Proudmoore," she announced, her voice carrying authority earned through decades of magical study and political maneuvering. "On behalf of King Anduin Wrynn, I welcome you to Stormwind. Though I must ask, what manner of being are you? Your power signature is unlike anything in our records." Goku grinned, always happy when someone recognized his strength. "I'm a Saiyan, though I was raised on Earth. As for what I can do, well, I've trained pretty much my whole life to protect my home from threats. Gods, demons, universe-destroying entities, you name it." He said it so casually that several of the assembled guards laughed nervously, unsure if he was joking. Jaina did not laugh. Her magical senses told her this man was not exaggerating. "Gods," she repeated carefully. "You've fought gods?" Goku nodded enthusiastically. "Oh yeah, Beerus, the god of destruction for our universe. He's incredibly strong. I've been training with his attendant Whis to get closer to his level. Then there's the angels, the Grand Priest, Zeno, who can erase entire universes with a thought. Actually, compared to some of the beings in my reality, I'm still pretty weak." The casual way he discussed universe-erasing entities sent chills through everyone present. Jaina's mind raced with implications. If this being was telling the truth, and her magical analysis suggested he was, then Azeroth had just been visited by something that operated on a cosmic scale that dwarfed even the Titans. "I think," Jaina said slowly, "that we should speak somewhere more private. King Anduin will want to hear this directly." They were escorted into Stormwind Keep's throne room, a magnificent chamber with high ceilings and banners representing the Alliance's various races and factions. Seated on the throne was Anduin Wrynn, young but bearing the weight of leadership with surprising grace. His father Varian's death had thrust him into kingship, and the experience had tempered his idealism with hard-won wisdom. Anduin rose as they entered, studying Goku with eyes that had learned to assess threats and allies quickly. What he saw was a man who moved with the confidence of a master warrior, but without arrogance or malice. "Welcome to Stormwind," Anduin said, his voice warm but cautious. "I'm told you fell from the sky with enough force to level part of Elwyn Forest, yet you stand here asking for directions. That's not something we see every day." Goku laughed. "Yeah, sorry about that. I really didn't mean to cause property damage. Where I come from, dimensional travel can be pretty rough if you don't have a lock on your destination. Speaking of which, could you tell me what planet this is, and maybe what universe?" Anduin exchanged glances with Jaina before responding. "This is Azeroth. As for universe, I'm not sure we use the same terminology you do. We know of the great dark beyond, the space between worlds, but the concept of multiple universes is more theoretical." Goku's expression became thoughtful. "So I'm really far from home then. This is going to be trickier than I thought." He looked directly at Anduin with surprising seriousness. "Look, I don't want to cause any trouble. If you can help me figure out how to get back to my universe, I'll be on my way and out of your hair." Before Anduin could respond, a commotion at the throne room entrance announced new arrivals. Thrall, the former war chief of the Horde, and now a shaman of great power, strode in with an escort of Orgrimmar guards. The fact that the Horde's representative had been allowed into Stormwind's throne room spoke to the gravity of the situation and the fragile peace that currently existed between the factions. "Anduin," Thrall said, nodding respectfully to the young king before his gaze fell on Goku. The orc's shamanic senses immediately registered the stranger's power, and his hand instinctively moved toward Doomhammer at his side. "I felt the disturbance from Orgrimmar. The elements themselves recoiled from whatever tore through the barriers between worlds. I assume this is the source. Goku waved cheerfully. Hi, I'm Goku. You're pretty strong yourself. I can feel your energy. It's different from the others here. More connected to natural forces. Thrall's eyes widened slightly. Few could sense shamanic power so easily. I commune with the elements, he confirmed. Fire, water, earth, air, and spirit. They grant me their strength in exchange for respect and understanding of the natural balance. His expression grew more serious. But you, whatever power you wield, the elements don't recognize it. They're confused, curious, and somewhat frightened. This revelation caused a stir among those present. If the elemental forces of Azeroth itself found this stranger unsettling, the implications were profound. Goku scratched his head, a gesture they were beginning to recognize as his signature response to complicated situations. I guess that makes sense. Ki is life energy, but it's not really tied to nature the same way your elemental magic seems to be. It's more about the martial arts and combat applications, though there is a spiritual component to it. Jaina stepped forward, her analytical mind already working through possibilities. If you're truly from another universe with different fundamental forces, that explains why our magical frameworks don't apply to you. But it also means returning you home will be extraordinarily difficult. The portals and teleportation we use rely on Azeroth's ley lines and cosmic architecture. Goku's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly, the sound echoing through the throne room. He laughed sheepishly. Sorry, I really am starving though. Do you think we could continue this conversation over food? I think better when I'm eating. Anduin couldn't help but smile at the mundane request amidst such cosmic circumstances. Of course, we'll have a feast prepared. In the meantime, you'll be our guest. The feast that followed became the stuff of legend among Stormwind servants. Goku consumed enough food for 20 men, then asked for more. Platters of roasted boar, baskets of bread, wheels of cheese, and barrels of ale disappeared at an alarming rate. Yet rather than being off-putting, his enthusiasm was somewhat endearing. Here was a being of cosmic power who genuinely loved eating, fought to protect others, and seemed completely lacking in pretension or malice. As they ate, Goku explained his universe's structure. The 12 universes, each with their own gods of destruction, the angels who served them, the supreme Kais who oversaw creation, and the Omni King Zeno who ruled over all existence. He described battles against beings like Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu, and most recently the Tournament of Power, where 8 universes had been erased from existence. Thrall listened with the intensity of a shaman hearing new creation myths. Jaina took mental notes, her mage's mind cataloging everything for later analysis. Anduin simply tried to comprehend the scale of what was being described, conflicts that made Azeroth's wars seem almost provincial by comparison. These gods of destruction, Thrall said during a pause in Goku's explanation. They sound similar to Sargeras, the Dark Titan who leads the Burning Legion. A being of immense power dedicated to destruction, though in his twisted mind, he believes he's saving the universe from a greater threat. Goku shook his head. It's not quite the same. Beerus destroys to maintain balance, not because he's evil or corrupted. If too many planets and civilizations exist, it throws off the cosmic equilibrium between creation and destruction. It's actually necessary work, even if it seems harsh. Jaina leaned forward, intrigued. A necessary destruction? That's a philosophical perspective we've struggled with. We've faced the Burning Legion for millennia, entities that destroy worlds seemingly out of malice or madness. The idea that destruction could serve a purpose beyond mere chaos is almost heretical to our understanding. Goku shrugged. I didn't really get it at first either. But after training with Whis and learning more about how the universes work, I've come to accept that it's more complicated than just good versus evil. Though, his expression hardened slightly. I'll still fight anyone who threatens innocent people, no matter what their reason is. This declaration resonated with everyone present. Whatever else Goku might be, he was clearly a protector at heart, something both Alliance and Horde could understand and respect. Their discussion was interrupted by a guard rushing in, his face pale with panic. "Your Majesty, Lord Admiral, Warchief Thrall, we've received word from Northrend. The Lich King stirs. Our scouts report massive undead movements from Icecrown Citadel, and there's something else. A presence accompanying the scourge that our Death Knights don't recognize." Anduin rose immediately. The young king's face grinned. "How many?" The guard swallowed hard. "Thousands, my king. Perhaps tens of thousands. They're moving south toward the Borean tundra settlements. If they reach the populated areas, the casualties will be catastrophic." Goku stood as well, his battle instincts kicking in. "Undead? Like zombies and skeletons?" When Anduin nodded, Goku's expression became serious. "I've fought undead before, back when I was dealing with Majin Buu. If you've got people in danger, I can help." Jaina held up a hand. "You don't understand. The Scourge isn't just animated corpses. They're commanded by the Lich King, one of the most powerful beings on Azeroth. Even with our combined forces, fighting them is a constant struggle." Thrall added, "And this unknown presence accompanying them is concerning. It could be a new lieutenant of the Lich King, or worse, something from beyond the Shadowlands that we don't understand." Goku grinned, his Saiyan blood responding to the prospect of a challenging fight. "Sounds like you could use the help then. Besides, I can't just sit around eating while innocent people are in danger. That's not who I am." Anduin studied Goku carefully. The stranger's offer seemed genuine, and Light knew they could use any advantage against the Scourge. But unleashing an unknown cosmic force against the Lich King could have unpredictable consequences. After a moment of internal debate, the young king made his decision. "Very well. Jaina, prepare a portal to Northrend. We'll assemble a strike force of our best heroes. If this stranger is willing to help, we'd be fools to refuse." Within the hour, a coalition force had gathered in Stormwind's portal room. Alliance champions stood alongside Horde warriors, the temporary truce holding in the face of the undead threat. Among them were some of Azeroth's mightiest heroes, including Darien Mograine, of the Knights of the Ebon Blade, the Death Knight who had once served the Lich King before breaking free of his control. Darien's glowing blue eyes fixed on Goku with undisguised suspicion. "You've never faced the Scourge. You don't know what you're walking into. The death magic that animates them is corrosive to the living, and the cold of Northrend can freeze a man solid in minutes." Goku stretched, loosening up his muscles in preparation for battle. "I've fought in all kinds of extreme conditions. Frozen wastelands, the vacuum of space, even inside a hyperbolic time chamber where time flows differently. I'll be fine." His casual confidence in the face of Northrend's legendary dangers was either admirable or foolish. None present were sure which. Jaina completed the portal, the swirling blue energy stabilizing into a gateway to the frozen north. "This will take us to Valiant's Keep in the Borean tundra. From there, we'll need to intercept the Scourge before they reach the civilian settlements." She looked at Goku specifically. "Stay with the group. Northrend is full of dangers beyond just the undead." Goku nodded, though those who knew him well from his own universe would have recognized the glint in his eye that said he was already planning to do things his own way if necessary. They stepped through the portal into a blast of Arctic wind that would have staggered lesser warriors. Northrend stretched before them, a landscape of ice and death where the remnants of the Lich King's power still cast long shadows. Valiant's Keep's walls loomed ahead, Alliance banners snapping in the cruel wind. But between the keep and their position, the horizon was darkened by an approaching tide of undead. Ghouls shambled forward in mindless hunger, skeletal warriors marched in terrifying precision, abominations stitched together from multiple corpses lumbered with inhuman strength, and flying above them all, frost worms circled on wings of bone and tattered membrane. At the center of this army of death stood a figure that radiated power of an entirely different magnitude, clad in armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Wielding a rune blade that whispered promises of endless suffering, the being commanded the Scourge with absolute authority. But this was not the Lich King. The energy signature was different, more concentrated, almost hungry in its intensity. "By the light," breathed the paladin in their group. "What is that thing?" Darian's expression darkened behind his helmet. "That's no lieutenant I recognize. The runes on its armor, they're not of Northrend. They're older, more primal. I think we're looking at something that predates even the Lich King's creation." Goku stepped forward, his enhanced senses analyzing the army and their commander. He could feel the death energy animating the undead, cold and unnatural compared to living Ki. But the commander was different, possessing actual life force twisted into something grotesque. "He's alive," Goku said, surprising everyone. "Corrupted and wrong, but there's actual life in him. Not like the zombies who are just being puppeted." Jaina's eyes widened at this observation. A living Death Knight? But the process of becoming a Death Knight requires dying and being raised by necromantic magic. If he maintains life while wielding death magic, that's a contradiction our knowledge says shouldn't exist. The undead army had spotted them now, and with a roar that shook the frozen ground, they charged. Thousands of reanimated corpses surging forward with single-minded purpose to kill and add the living to their ranks. The Azeroth champions prepared their defenses, paladins calling upon the light, mages readying area effect spells, warriors setting their stances for the impact. Goku simply cracked his knuckles. "Okay, time to work off that feast." Before anyone could stop him, he vanished, moving faster than even the quickest eye could track. He reappeared in the middle of the undead horde, and chaos erupted. A ghoul lunged at him with diseased claws, only to find itself launched into the air by a casual backhand that sent it tumbling through a dozen of its fellows. Skeletal warriors tried to swarm him, their ancient weapons striking only empty air as Goku weaved between their attacks before delivering precise strikes that shattered their animated bones. An abomination, a creature that required multiple heroes to take down safely, lumbered toward him with its massive cleaver raised. Goku didn't even transform, just jumped up and delivered a kick to the creature's midsection that sent it flying backward, crushing a score of zombies beneath its bulk. The Azeroth champions stood frozen in shock. They had expected the stranger to be powerful, but this was beyond anything they'd imagined. He was treating the Scourge like they were training dummies, his movements fluid and precise, never wasting energy, never missing an opportunity to redirect an enemy's force against another. "He's not using magic," Jaina breathed, her analytical mind trying to categorize what she was seeing. No spells, no incantations, just physical prowess enhanced by that energy of his. It's like watching a monk, but operating at a scale that defies belief. Thrall's fist crackled with elemental energy. "We should help him. That many undead, even with his strength, will wear him down eventually." But even as he spoke, it became clear that Goku was in no danger. A frost worm dove from the sky, its maw open to release a blast of necromantic frost that could freeze a man solid. Goku simply caught the creature's jaw with one hand, holding it shut as he spun and threw the massive undead dragon back into the sky where it tumbled end over end. "This would be more fun if you guys were actually trying to fight, instead of just swarming," Goku called out, his voice carrying across the battlefield. Then his eyes found the commander. "How about you? Want to have a real match?" The armored figure had been watching with what might have been amusement or curiosity, hard to tell behind the Death Knight helm. Now it spoke, its voice carrying the metallic echo of death magic. "So the anomaly reveals himself. The whispers from beyond spoke of your arrival, a power from outside our reality." The figure raised its rune blade, and the temperature plummeted further. Frost spread across the ground in intricate patterns, each crystalline formation containing trapped souls that screamed silently. "I am Veltheros, Death's champion, forged in the spaces between death and undeath. And you, outsider, will be my greatest trophy." Goku settled into a fighting stance, his expression shifting to the focused intensity he showed when facing a serious opponent. "Death's champion? Sounds impressive. Let's see if you can back it up." Veltheros moved with shocking speed for something wearing plate armor. his runeblade cutting through the air in arcs that left trails of necromantic energy. Where the blade passed, reality seemed to grow colder, the very concept of life retreating from its touch. Goku dodged the first few swings, getting a feel for his opponent's style and speed. The Death Knight was fast, faster than most enemies Goku had faced in his base form, and the blade's magic was clearly dangerous. When Valtheros executed a particularly vicious combo, Goku blocked the final strike with his forearm and immediately felt the death magic trying to invade his Kirin network. "Interesting weapon," Goku said, jumping back and shaking out his arm. "It's trying to kill me from the inside out. That's a new trick." He focused his ki, burning away the necromantic infection before it could take hold. The golden aura around his arm flared briefly, purifying the death magic in a way that made Valtheros recoil. "Impossible," the Death Knight hissed. "Nothing purges the touch of death so easily." "What are you?" Goku grinned. "I'm a martial artist who's trained against gods and universal threats. Your death magic is nasty, but I've dealt with energy attacks designed to erase existence itself. No offense, but this is kind of tame by comparison." The statement was delivered without arrogance, just honest assessment, which somehow made it more insulting. Valtheros roared in fury, dark energy exploding around him as he channeled the full extent of his power. The ground beneath them cracked and split, corpses climbing from beneath the ice as he summoned reinforcements. Runic circles appeared in the air, each one launching bolts of shadow and frost. "I will show you the true meaning of death," Valtheros declared, his power reaching levels that made even the watching champions take involuntary steps backward. Goku's expression became more serious, recognizing that his opponent had stopped holding back. "All right then, guess I should match your energy." Golden light erupted around him as he transformed into a Super Saiyan, his hair standing upright and turning gold, his eyes shifting to green, and his power levels skyrocketing to heights that made Azeroth's magic users double over from the sudden pressure. The transformation sent a shockwave across the frozen tundra that shattered ice formations and sent weaker undead tumbling. Even the Death Knights in the Azeroth coalition staggered, their death magic recoiling from the sheer life energy radiating from Goku's transformed state. "That's better," Goku said, his voice carrying a new harmonic quality. "Now we can have a real fight." He vanished and reappeared behind Valtheros, landing a punch to the Death Knight's back that sent him crashing into the frozen ground hard enough to create a crater. Before Valtheros could recover, Goku was on him again, a blur of golden light delivering strikes faster than most observers could follow. The Death Knight managed to bring his rune blade up in defense, but the weapon that had cleaved through armies found itself being pushed back by bare hands wreathed in golden kai. "Your death magic can't keep up with my energy," Goku explained as he fought, his teaching instinct kicking in even mid-battle. "It's trying to corrupt and kill, but my ki is pure life force concentrated to its maximum." They're fundamentally opposed, and right now, mine is stronger. Valtheros responded by unleashing a technique that made the watching heroes gasp in horror. He drove his rune blade into the ground, and from it spread a zone of absolute death. Plants that had somehow survived in Northren's harsh climate withered instantly. The air itself seemed to die, becoming stagnant and poisonous. Living beings caught at the edge of the zone collapsed, their life force drained to fuel the Death Knight's power. "The Death Sphere," Darien breathed. "That's a technique even the Lich King rarely used. It kills everything within its radius, no exceptions, no saves, just absolute death." But Goku stood at the center of the expanding sphere, his Super Saiyan aura blazing even brighter as it pushed back against the death magic. Where the two energies met, reality itself seemed to flicker, unable to reconcile such opposed forces existing in the same space. "I've felt death before," Goku said, his voice strangely calm within the sphere of absolute ending. "Died and came back twice, actually. So I know what you're trying to do here, and I'm telling you it won't work on me." He cupped his hands at his side, blue energy gathering between his palms. Me. The watching Azeroth champions recognized a technique being prepared, even if they'd never seen this particular one before. Jaina began erecting magical barriers, sensing the massive energy buildup. Thrall called on the elements to create shields. The Death Knights braced themselves, their experience with destructive power telling them something devastating was coming. Ha! The Kamehameha wave erupted forth, a beam of concentrated blue-white ki that punched through the death sphere like it was paper. The death magic dissolved on contact with the technique, unable to corrupt or stop pure life energy focused to such an extreme degree. Veltheros had only a moment to realize his mistake before the beam engulfed him completely. The Death Knight's armor, enchanted to withstand the most powerful magic Azeroth could produce, began to crack and shatter. His rune blade, forged from the essence of death itself, fractured down its length. And Veltheros himself, the being who existed between life and death, found that contradiction forcibly resolved as the Kamehameha burned away the necromantic magic sustaining him. When the beam finally dissipated, Veltheros lay in a crater of melted ice and scorched earth, his armor in pieces, his rune blade shattered, and his power broken. He was still alive, truly alive for the first time in whatever twisted process had created him, but that vitality was fading fast. "What did you do to me?" he gasped. Confusion and something almost like relief in his voice. Goku powered down to his base form, walking over to crouch beside the dying Death Knight. "I burned away the death magic that was holding you together. You said you were between life and death, but that's not a natural state. My ki forced you to choose, and your body chose life, even if only for a moment." Veltheros' eyes, no longer glowing with necromantic power, looked almost human. "I can feel it. Warmth. I'd forgotten what warmth felt like." His gaze found Goku's face. "Thank you, Anomaly. You've given me an ending that was mine, not his." The Death Knight's eyes closed, and this time, there was no magic to raise him, no dark power to drag him back. He simply died, truly and completely, released from whatever torment had created Death's champion. The Scourge army, deprived of their commander, began to scatter. Without a strong will directing them, the undead reverted to their base nature, wandering aimlessly or fighting amongst themselves. The immediate threat to the Borean tundra settlements had been neutralized. Goku stood and turned to find himself surrounded by the Azeroth champions, all of whom were staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to fear to calculation. It was Darien who spoke first, his Death Knight voice rough with emotion. "You purified death magic. I've never seen anything like it. Even the light, the most powerful force we know against undeath, can only destroy or temporarily suppress it. You actually transformed it back into life, if only for a moment." Goku rubbed the back of his head, his characteristic gesture of humble embarrassment. "I didn't really think about it that deeply. I just hit him with a lot of energy. If it helped him find peace at the end, then I'm glad." Jaina stepped forward, her mage's robe scorched at the edges from the ambient energy of the battle. "Goku, what you just did, the implications are staggering. The Scourge has been a threat to Azeroth for decades. If your power can permanently neutralize death magic, you could help us end that threat once and for all." Thrall held up a cautionary hand. "Let's not be hasty. We've just witnessed power beyond our full comprehension used in our service, but we know almost nothing about the broader consequences. What if purifying that much death magic all at once damages Azeroth's balance in other ways?" Goku looked between them, sensing the political and philosophical complexities beneath their words. "Look, I'm happy to help fight bad guys who are threatening people, but I'm not going to solve all your problems for you. That wouldn't be right. You'd never learn or grow stronger yourselves." Anduin, who had been quietly observing the entire battle through magical scrying from Stormwind, chose that moment to interject via Jaina's communication crystal. "He's right. Whatever Goku's capabilities, Azeroth's problems are ultimately for Azeroth's people to solve. However, I would like to extend an offer." The crystal projected an image of the young king. "Goku, while we search for a way to return you to your universe, Would you consider serving as what we might call a consultant? When threats arise that seem beyond our capability to handle, we could call on your assistance. But day-to-day governance and conflicts would remain our responsibility. Goku considered this seriously. That seems fair. I don't want to take over or anything, but I can't ignore people in real danger either. Plus, his expression brightened. Your world has some pretty strong fighters. That Death Knight was actually challenging before I went Super Saiyan. I'd love to see what your absolute strongest people can do. This enthusiasm for combat, so pure and uncomplicated, actually made several of the warriors present smile. Here was a being of cosmic power who simply wanted good fights and to help people. No political agenda, no desire for worship or control, just a straightforward warrior's code. The return journey to Stormwind was subdued, everyone processing what they'd witnessed. Word had already spread throughout the Alliance and Horde about the Golden Warrior who had single-handedly broken a Scourge offensive. Naturally, not everyone was pleased. In Orgrimmar, War Chief Sylvanas Windrunner, herself a being raised from death, listened to Thrall's report with growing concern. The Dark Lady had her own complex relationship with death and undeath, and the idea of an outsider who could simply purify necromantic magic threatened concepts she'd built her very existence around. This Goku, she said, her voice carrying the hollow quality of the Banshee Queen. He destroyed Veltheros completely? No resurrection possible. Thrall nodded. The death magic was burned away at a fundamental level. There was nothing left to raise. Sylvanas's red eyes narrowed. Then he's as much a threat as an ally. If he can do that to undead, he could do it to the Forsaken. To me. She leaned back in her throne, considering options. We must approach this carefully. Make our own overtures to this outsider. Ensure he understands that not all undead are mindless scourge. Some of us maintain our free will, our personalities. We are not abominations to be purified. Meanwhile, in the depths of Icecrown Citadel, the true Lich King stirred upon the frozen throne. Bolvar Fordragon, the man who had taken up the cursed helm to keep the scourge contained, felt the reverberations of Veltharos's destruction through his connection to all undead. An outsider, Bolvar's voice echoed through the throne room, tinged with the Lich King's power. A being who can unmake death itself. This changes everything. The helm's influence whispered dark strategies, but Bolvar's remaining humanity urged caution. This was not an enemy to face directly, not yet. In Stormwind, Goku had been given quarters in the keep, though he spent most of his time exploring the city or training in whatever open spaces he could find. The citizens had grown accustomed to seeing him running through the streets at impossible speeds or practicing forms in the air above the canals, his golden transformations becoming a familiar sight. It was during one of these training sessions that he attracted unexpected attention. A portal shimmered into existence, and through it stepped a figure that made every mage in the vicinity immediately bow. Khadgar, the Archmage, perhaps the most knowledgeable magic user currently active on Azeroth, had returned from his studies in Karajan specifically to meet this anomaly. Fascinating, Khadgar said, stroking his beard as he watched Goku practice aerial maneuvers without any visible magic. True flight without levitation spells or winged mounts. You're manipulating your energy to counteract gravity itself. Goku descended, landing lightly beside the elderly mage. Yeah, it's one of the first things you learn after mastering ki control. Makes getting around a lot easier. He studied Khadgar with interest. You're different from the other magic users I've met here. Your energy feels older, more refined. Khadgar chuckled. I've been studying magic for longer than most kingdoms have existed. The curse of extended life through magical means. His expression grew serious. I've heard the reports, but I needed to see you with my own eyes. Your power operates on principles completely foreign to Azeroth's cosmic framework. Do you understand what that means? Goku shook his head. Not really. I just know my ki works differently than your magic. The Archmage gestured, creating an illusory display of Azeroth's cosmology, the great dark beyond, the twisting nether, the various cosmic forces represented by different colored energies. Azeroth exists within a framework of 6 fundamental forces: light and void, life and death, order and disorder. All magic, all power on this world, derives from these sources or their intersection. But you, he pointed at Goku, you're completely outside this framework. Your ki isn't drawn from any of these cosmic sources. It's self-generated, sustained entirely by your own life force and will. Goku found this explanation genuinely interesting. Huh, so that's why your magic feels so different to me. It's like you're borrowing power from somewhere else, while I'm using what's already inside me. Khadgar nodded enthusiastically. Precisely, and that has profound implications. The cosmic forces of our universe have wills of their own, agendas that span eons. Light seeks to impose order through enforced harmony. Void seeks to undermine through whispered madness. Death wants to claim all living things, and so forth. But your ki answers only to you. No cosmic entity can corrupt it because it has no connection point to exploit. This revelation made Goku pause. Is that why that Death Knight's blade didn't work on me properly? It was trying to connect to death energy that wasn't there? The Archmage smiled. You're more insightful than you let on. Yes, exactly that. Your immunity to corruption isn't because you're particularly resistant, though I'm sure your training helps, but because the cosmic forces literally can't find purchase in energy that originates from entirely different universal constants. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the city gates. A caravan of night elves had arrived, led by High Priestess Tyrande Whisperwind and her husband, the Archdruid Malfurion Stormrage. The ancient couple, who had lived for over 10,000 years, had come personally to investigate the being whose power had sent ripples through Azeroth's natural order. Tyrande approached with the grace of millennia, her eyes glowing with the power of Elune, the moon goddess. Malfurion's connection to the Emerald Dream, the spiritual blueprint of Azeroth's nature, made him acutely sensitive to disruptions in the natural order. Both had felt Goku's arrival like an earthquake in their respective power sources. So you are the outsider, Tyrande said, her voice carrying the authority of a goddess's chosen, the one who wields power that Elune herself cannot categorize. Goku waved friendly. I'm Goku. You must be important, everyone's bowing. He was frustratingly immune to intimidation or awe when it came to figures of authority. Malfurion's weathered face showed a hint of amusement. I like him already. No pretense, no political games. His expression grew more serious. But young one, your presence has disturbed the Emerald Dream. The spirits of nature don't understand what you are, and their confusion creates ripples that affect the natural world. Goku looked concerned. I don't want to hurt anything. Is there a way I can fix it? This immediate acceptance of responsibility and desire to help impressed both ancient elves. Tyrande and Malfurion exchanged glances, communicating in the wordless way of couples who'd been together for thousands of years. Perhaps, Malfurion said slowly, you could accompany me to a grove sacred to the dream. If you allow the spirits to examine your energy directly, in a controlled environment, they might understand rather than fear. Goku agreed immediately, always eager to learn more about the world he'd found himself in. The journey to Moonglade took them through ancient forests where trees had stood since before human civilization existed on Azeroth. Goku could feel the life energy in everything here, stronger and more concentrated than in the more developed areas. It reminded him slightly of the sacred land of the Kais, in a clearing surrounded by enormous trees whose roots glowed with natural magic. Malfurion began the ritual. He shifted into his dream form, his spirit entering the Emerald Dream while his body remained in meditative trance. Tyrande stood watch, her bow at the ready, while Khadgar observed with scholarly interest. Open yourself to the experience. Malfurion's voice echoed from multiple directions. Do not resist what comes next. Goku closed his eyes, extending his ki sense outward. Immediately, he felt something vast and ancient brushing against his consciousness. The Emerald Dream, a realm of pure nature and growth, was trying to understand this foreign element in its domain. Visions flooded through Goku's mind. He saw Azeroth's birth, a Titan world soul sleeping within the planet, waiting to awaken. He saw the old gods, beings of the void, crashing into the world and corrupting it with their mere presence. He witnessed the Titans arriving to impose order, the Troll empires rising and falling, the Burning Legion's invasions, and the countless struggles that had shaped this world. Through it all, he understood something crucial. Azeroth itself was alive, not in the simple way a planet might be, but truly alive with consciousness and will. The world soul within the planet was aware, dreaming, and his presence had disturbed that dream. "I'm sorry," Goku projected into the dream, speaking to the consciousness of the world itself. "I didn't mean to worry you. I'm not here to hurt anything. I'm just lost and trying to find my way home." The response was not words but feelings. Curiosity, recognition of a kindred spirit, another world soul in humanoid form, though fundamentally different in nature. Azeroth's consciousness saw in Goku's ki a reflection of its own life force, pure and uncorrupted by the cosmic forces that had shaped so much of its existence. Understanding flowed both ways. Goku felt Azeroth's pain, the corruption of the old god still festering in its depths, the wounds left by the Burning Legion's invasions, the constant struggle to maintain balance against forces that sought to claim or destroy it. When Goku and Malfurion both emerged from the trance, hours had passed in the material world. The Archdruid looked shaken, and even Goku seemed more serious than usual. "The world accepted you," Malfurion said with wonder. "Azeroth itself has granted you sanctuary and recognized you as a protector." He turned to Tyrande and Khadgar. "This is unprecedented. The world soul has never directly communicated approval of an individual before. Not even the aspects or the Titans received such clear acknowledgement." Tyrande's expression was thoughtful. Then perhaps his arrival was not the accident it appeared to be. Perhaps there are forces at work beyond even our understanding. Their philosophical discussion was cut short by a blast of void energy that tore through the peaceful grove. From a rift in reality stepped creatures that should not exist in the material world. Faceless ones, servants of the old gods, accompanied by void-touched elements, and at their center, an emissary of N'Zoth, the most cunning of the imprisoned old gods. The creature was a mass of tentacles and too many eyes, its form shifting in ways that hurt to look at. The outsider. It spoke directly into their minds, its voice carrying madness at its edges. The one who caught N'Zoth's attention. The corrupter of worlds wishes to make you an offer. Goku stepped forward, his instinct screaming danger, even though the creature hadn't attacked yet. "I'm not interested in offers from something that calls itself a corrupter of worlds." The emissary laughed, a sound like breaking glass mixed with drowning screams. "You misunderstand. N'Zoth does not offer servitude but partnership. You are anathema to the cosmic forces of this reality. The light cannot claim you, death cannot touch you, order cannot bind you. You are the perfect weapon against the Titans who imprisoned the old gods eons ago." Goku's expression hardened. "I already told your Death Knight buddy, I'm not anyone's weapon, and I definitely don't work with things that want to corrupt and destroy." The emissary's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Such certainty. Let us see if it holds." Void energy exploded outward, not as an attack, but as a revelation. Goku suddenly saw the truth of the Titans' order, how they had systematically destroyed countless civilizations deemed imperfect, how they had reshaped worlds without consent, imposing their vision of order through absolute force. He saw the old gods' perspective, beings seeking only to survive and spread their existence, imprisoned for the crime of being different from the Titans' perfect vision. "The Titans are not the benevolent creators this world believes them to be," the emissary whispered. "They are tyrants who destroy anything that doesn't fit their narrow definition of order. We old gods offer true freedom, evolution beyond stagnant perfection. For a moment, the argument almost made sense to Goku. He'd fought gods before who claimed to act for the greater good while causing terrible suffering. But then he felt the corruption beneath the words, the way void energy sought to twist truth into something that served only madness and destruction. "Nice try," Goku said, his ki flaring to push back the void influence. "But I've dealt with deceptive villains before. You're not offering freedom, you're offering slavery to madness. There's a difference between questioning authority and serving chaos that only wants to consume everything." The emissary shrieked, its persuasion failing where it had never failed before. "Then you will be destroyed. N'Zoth's will cannot be denied." Faceless ones surged forward, their forms constantly shifting between physical and void states. Void-touched elements attacked with corrupted versions of fire, water, earth, and air. Reality itself seemed to bend around them, the rules of physics becoming suggestions in the presence of so much void energy. Goku transformed into Super Saiyan, the golden aura, pushing back the void corruption like sunlight dispelling shadows. His first punch landed on a faceless one, and the creature discovered that while void energy allowed it to phase through normal attacks, ki was too fundamentally real to avoid. The construct of void and stolen flesh exploded into dissipating energy. Malfurion had shifted into his combat form, massive roots erupting from the ground to entangle enemies while hurricanes of natural magic tore at the void constructs. Tyranda's arrows, blessed by Alune herself, found targets with unerring accuracy, each shot banishing void energy back to the spaces between spaces where it belonged. Khadgar wove complex arcane barriers, protecting the grove from the worst of the corruption, while launching devastating counterspells that unraveled the void magic sustaining the invaders. But it was Goku who turned the tide decisively. He'd learned something from his communion with Azeroth's world soul, how to channel his ki in harmony with the planet's own life force. When he planted his feet and powered up golden energy mixed with green natural magic, creating a hybrid force that was neither pure ki nor pure druidic power but something new. "You want to corrupt this world?" Goku's voice carried authority he rarely showed. "You'll have to go through me first, and I promise you that's not happening." He moved through the void forces like a golden green comet, each strike purifying corruption and restoring natural order. The emissary of N'Zoth tried to counter with sanity-blasting revelations, showing Goku visions of cosmic horror designed to break mortal minds. But Goku had trained with angels and gods, had witnessed Xeno erase entire universes. The old god's attempts to inspire madness were comparatively amateur hour. Is that it? Goku actually sounded disappointed as he deflected a tentacle attack. "I've seen way scarier things. At least Beerus was genuinely terrifying when he got angry." The insult, comparing an old god unfavorably to a being the emissary couldn't even comprehend, sent it into a rage. It abandoned subtlety and strategy, throwing everything into one massive void assault designed to corrupt the entire grove and everyone in it. This proved to be a fatal mistake. Goku cupped his hands, but this time the energy gathering between his palms was different. Golden ki mixed with the green of natural magic, creating a technique that had never existed in either universe before. Gaia, Kamehameha! The beam that erupted forth carried not just destructive force, but the purifying essence of a world soul's life energy. It struck the old god's emissary and simply unmade it, burning away void corruption so completely that not even a whisper remained. The remaining faceless ones collapsed, their connection to their master severed by the technique's purifying force. When the light faded, the grove was quiet. The corruption was gone, not suppressed or sealed, but actually destroyed at a fundamental level. New growth was already sprouting where void-touched ground had been, nature reclaiming what had been stolen. Malfurion stared at Goku with something approaching religious awe. "You channeled Azeroth's own life force through your technique. That shouldn't be possible. The world soul doesn't grant its power to individuals, not even to me, and I've served nature for 10,000 years. Goku looked at his hands, surprised himself. I didn't really think about it. I just felt the planet's energy and realized it was similar enough to Ki that I could blend them. It made the technique way more effective against that void stuff. Khadgar was taking frantic notes, his scholarly instincts overriding his shock. You've created a new form of magic, or perhaps more accurately, you've proven that magic and Ki can be synthesized. The implications are staggering. Tyrande placed a hand on Goku's shoulder, her expression serious. You have done Azeroth a great service today. N'Zoth has been whispering corruption for millennia, but you struck directly at one of his emissaries with a force he cannot corrupt or counter. The old gods will remember this, and they will fear you. News of the battle spread quickly, as did the details of Goku's new hybrid technique. The various factions of Azeroth began to see the outsider not just as a powerful ally, but as a potential game-changer in conflicts that had seemed eternal. In the Eastern Kingdoms, the Scarlet Crusade, zealots who had taken the fight against undead to fanatical extremes, saw Goku as a potential weapon to recruit. In Pandaria, the Shadowpan monks heard tales of his martial prowess and sent emissaries inviting him to visit their temples. In the depths of Blackrock Mountain, Ragnaros the Fire Lord felt the ripples of a power that could potentially threaten even elemental lords. And across the Great Sea, on the broken shore where the Burning Legion had once again begun to gather its forces, demons whispered nervously about the Golden Warrior who existed outside the cosmic order they understood. But it was in the Violet Citadel of Dalaran, the floating city of mages, that the most significant meeting took place. The Kirin Tor, Azeroth's most prestigious organization of mages, had convened an emergency session of the Council of Six to discuss Goku's presence and its implications. Jaina, as a member of the council, presented her findings. We've observed him for several weeks now. His power is undeniable, but more importantly, his nature seems fundamentally incorruptible. The old gods, the Burning Legion, even the Lich King, none of the usual corrupting influences seem able to touch him. Another council member, the Archmage Anserum Runeweaver, stroked his beard thoughtfully. But is he controllable? Power without direction can be as dangerous as outright malevolence. Khadgar, invited as an expert witness, spoke up. You're asking the wrong question. Goku doesn't need to be controlled because his moral compass is already aligned with protecting innocent life. The real question is whether we can learn from him, whether his techniques and energy manipulation could be adapted to help Azeroth's defenders. This sparked a heated debate. Some mages argued that trying to learn key techniques was impossible for beings native to Azeroth, whose power was fundamentally tied to the cosmic forces. Others insisted that Goku's successful hybridization of ki and natural magic proved there was potential for synthesis. Meanwhile, Goku himself was in Dalaran's training grounds, demonstrating basic ki techniques to a group of monks and martial artists who had gathered to learn from him. The key is feeling the energy flow through your body, he explained, demonstrating a basic ki blast. Don't pull from external sources, generate it from within. Your life force, your fighting spirit, your will to protect others, that's what powers ki. A Pandaren monk named Master Shang-Chi watched with intense interest. His people had practiced martial arts for thousands of years, but their techniques relied on channeling external energies like chi or the august celestial's blessings. The idea of purely internal power generation was revolutionary. Show us the transformation again, Shang-Chi requested. The Super Saiyan form. I want to understand the mechanism. Goku obliged, his aura flaring golden as he transformed. It's not just power increase, it's about breaking your limits through extreme emotion, usually anger or desperation. But I've learned to do it through focused determination instead. Your body adapts, your cells change, and suddenly you can access power that was always there but locked away. A human warrior in the crowd called out, "Could we learn this? Could humans from Azeroth become Super Saiyans?" Goku shook his head regretfully. Probably not. Super Saiyan is specific to Saiyan biology, but his expression brightened. The principle behind it, breaking your limits through intense training and emotional breakthrough, that's universal. You might not get golden hair and green eyes, but you could definitely unlock hidden potential. This sparked hope among the gathered warriors. The idea that they could push beyond their current limits using principles from another universe was intoxicating. Over the following days, Goku found himself training with various groups across Azeroth. He sparred with Pandaren monks, learning their techniques while teaching them his own. He exchanged combat philosophies with Orc warriors in Orgrimmar, their raw strength and battle lust reminding him of Saiyans in some ways. He even spent time with the Draenei, whose connection to the light and their martial traditions as Vindicators gave them unique perspectives on combining spiritual power with physical combat. It was during a visit to the Draenei capital of the Exodar that Goku met Prophet Velen, one of the oldest living beings on Azeroth. The ancient Draenei had been gifted with prophetic visions by the Naru, beings of pure light, and his wisdom spanned thousands of years. "I foresaw your arrival," Velen admitted as they walked through the Exodar's crystalline halls. Though the details were unclear, shrouded in uncertainty that usually indicates interference from beyond my sight, now I understand why. You exist outside the cosmic framework my visions navigate. Goku found Velen's calm presence soothing, reminding him slightly of Kami or the Grand Kai. "Can you see the future? That must be useful in fights." Velen smiled sadly. "The future is not fixed but fluid, shaped by choices. I see possibilities, potential paths, but free will determines which path becomes reality." His expression grew more serious. "I have seen futures where your presence leads to unprecedented peace on Azeroth, where the lessons you teach help us overcome threats we could never have defeated alone. But I have also seen darker paths, where your power becomes a crutch, where Azeroth grows dependent on the outsider rather than finding its own strength." This troubled Goku. "I don't want people to depend on me. Back home, I've always tried to help others get stronger rather than just solving their problems for them." Velen nodded approvingly. "Then you have wisdom to match your power. That is a rare combination." He paused, his eyes glowing with prophetic vision. "A warning, Goku. The Burning Legion has taken note of you. Their master, Sargeras the Dark Titan, sees in you both a threat and an opportunity. He will send his most powerful servants to test you." As if summoned by the prophecy, alarms began ringing throughout the Exodar. A legion assault had materialized in the skies above Azure Mist Isle, demons pouring through fell portals in numbers that hadn't been seen since the last major invasion. But this wasn't a random attack. At the center of the demon army stood a figure that made even Velen's calm demeanor crack. Archimonde the Defiler, one of the Burning Legion's supreme commanders, had come personally. The Eridar Lord towered over even the largest demons, his power radiating across the battlefield like a malevolent sun. "So the anomaly reveals himself." Archimonde's voice boomed across the island. "Sargeras has tasked me with measuring your worth. If you survive, you will be granted an audience with the Dark Titan himself. If you fail, you will be another footnote in the Legion's eternal crusade." Goku stepped forward, his expression shifting to combat focus. "I've heard about you guys. The Burning Legion, right? You destroy worlds, crush civilizations. You sound like Frieza's organization, just with demons instead of aliens." Archimonde laughed, a sound that shook the ground. "We are beyond such petty conquests. We seek to prevent the void from consuming all of existence by destroying it ourselves. Orderly annihilation is preferable to chaotic corruption." The twisted logic reminded Goku of villains he'd faced before, beings who convinced themselves their atrocities served a greater purpose. "You know what I think? I think you're just making excuses to destroy things. If you really wanted to protect existence, you'd find another way." Archimonde's amusement vanished. "Your opinion is irrelevant. Demonstrate your power or perish with the rest of this pitiful world." The Eridar Lord raised his hand, and destruction rained from the sky. Fell meteors the size of buildings crashed toward the Exodar. each one carrying enough corrupting energy to level a city block. Goku transformed instantly, golden aura exploding around him as he shot into the sky. He met the first meteor with a punch that shattered it into harmless fragments. The second he deflected with a Kai blast. The third through 10th he destroyed in a blur of motion too fast for most observers to follow. Impressive speed, Archimonde acknowledged, but speed alone will not save you from the Legion's might. The Eridar Lord teleported, appearing behind Goku in midair and grabbing him with one massive hand. Fell energy poured from Archimonde's grip, the same corrupting force that had twisted entire worlds into demon strongholds. But just as the Death Knight's blade had failed to corrupt him, the feel energy found no purchase on Goku's ki-infused body. "You're strong," Goku admitted, struggling against the grip, "but your magic still doesn't work on me the way it should." He powered up further, his aura expanding with such force that it broke Archimonde's hold. Free again, Goku launched a counterattack. His fists moved in combinations he'd perfected over a lifetime of martial arts training, each strike enhanced by Super Saiyan power. Archimonde blocked and countered with magic and physical might, his thousands of years of experience against countless opponents giving him an edge in technique, even if Goku matched him in raw power. The battle raged across the sky above Azuremist Isle, two titans of power clashing while armies of demons and Azeroth defenders fought below. Each exchange of blows sent shockwaves that could be felt for miles. When Archimonde unleashed his signature spell, Finger of Death, pointing at Goku with deadly intent, the Saiyan dodged at the last second, watching the instant death magic disintegrate a mountain in the distance. "You're really trying to kill me," Goku said, his tone more excited than afraid. "Good. I hate it when opponents hold back." He began to power up to Super Saiyan 2, but then paused. Something Whis had taught him about conservation of energy and fighting smart rather than just overpowering opponents. Instead of brute forcing his way through the fight, maybe he should try technique. "Let me show you something I learned from Master Roshi way back when I was a kid," Goku said, dropping into a stance Archimonde didn't recognize. "It's called the afterimage technique, but I've refined it quite a bit since then." Multiple Gokus appeared simultaneously, each one solid enough to attack independently. Archimonde snarled, unleashing area effect spells that should have destroyed illusions, but these weren't illusions. Goku was moving so fast he was creating actual physical afterimages that persisted for seconds, each one capable of delivering real attacks. The Eridar Lord found himself being struck from multiple angles simultaneously, his defenses tested by an assault pattern that shouldn't be possible by normal physical laws. "Impossible," Archimonde growled, his field barrier straining under the assault. "No mortal moves this fast without time magic." Goku's voice came from everywhere at once. "I'm not using time magic. This is pure speed and technique. Want to see something cooler?" All the afterimages converged, and Goku appeared directly in front of Archimonde at point-blank range. Before the Eridar could react, Goku placed two fingers on his forehead. Instant transmission, Kamehameha. They teleported halfway across the world in an instant, appearing above the ocean far from any land. The moment they materialized, Goku unleashed a Kamehameha wave at full Super Saiyan power, the blue-white beam engulfing Archimonde completely. The technique was devastating, but what made it truly effective was the surprise. Archimonde hadn't had time to erect his strongest defenses or teleport away. The Kamehameha drove him down into the ocean with tremendous force, the impact creating a temporary trench in the water hundreds of feet deep. When Goku floated back up to catch his breath, he half expected the Eridar Lord to be finished. He should have known better. Archimonde erupted from the ocean, water boiling away from the sheer heat of his rage. His form had changed, growing larger, more demonic, as he tapped into deeper wells of fell power. "You dare!" the Eridar roared. "I am Archimonde the Defiler. I have broken world souls. I have led the Legion's greatest victories. I will not be bested by an outsider." The Demon Lord's power surged to heights that made reality itself groan under the pressure. This was the true might of one of the Burning Legion's supreme commanders, power that could crack continents and extinguish civilizations. Goku realized he'd need to match that escalation. His golden aura shifted, crackling with electricity as he ascended to Super Saiyan 2. Lightning danced around his more defined muscles, his power doubling from the already astronomical levels of basic Super Saiyan. "All right," Goku said, his voice carrying the harmonic quality of his transformed state. "No more warm-up." They clashed again, but this time the scale was different. Each punch created sonic booms. Each ki blast or fell spell carved temporary wounds in reality. The ocean beneath them evaporated from the ambient energy, creating a battlefield of steam and violence. Archimonde proved why he was feared across thousands of worlds. His combat magic was precise and devastating, teleporting strikes, time dilation fields that slowed Goku's movements, summons that pulled demons from across the Legion to support him. He fought with the experience of eons, predicting Goku's moves and countering before they fully developed. But Goku had his own advantages. His Saiyan adaptability meant he was learning and adjusting with each exchange, his movements becoming more efficient, his counters more precise. And unlike Archimonde's fell magic, which was static in nature, Goku's ki was continuously flowing and adapting, making it impossible for the Eridar to fully predict or counter. The battle had raged for what felt like hours when Archimonde made his final play. He began channeling a spell of such massive scale that it drew the attention of beings across Azeroth. This was the same magic he had once used to destroy the World Tree Nordrassil, a spell designed to unmake the work of Titans themselves. "If I cannot defeat you directly," Archimonde declared, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty, "then I will destroy the world beneath us. You care about these mortals, their petty lives and struggles. Save them or defeat me. You cannot do both." The spell completed, and a wave of destruction began spreading from Archimonde's position toward the distant continents. If it reached land, millions would die. Entire ecosystems would be reduced to fell-tainted wasteland. The damage would set Azeroth's recovery back centuries. Goku saw the wave spreading and made his choice instantly. He powered down from Super Saiyan 2, surprising Archimonde, but this wasn't surrender. Instead, Goku placed his fingers to his forehead and vanished, using instant transmission to teleport directly in front of the destruction wave. "I won't let you hurt innocent people," Goku stated, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what he was attempting. He spread his arms wide and let his ki explode outward, not as an attack but as a barrier. The golden energy met the field destruction wave and held it back through sheer force of will. It was an impossible task, containing a spell designed to unmake Titan work with nothing but life energy and determination. Archimonde laughed, confident in his victory. "Fool, you sacrifice yourself to buy them mere minutes. When your strength fails, the destruction will continue, and you will be too depleted to stop me from simply casting the spell again." But Goku wasn't just holding the destruction back. He was doing what he'd done to Veltharis' Death Sphere, what he'd done to N'Zoth's Void Corruption. He was purifying it. The fell energy, meeting its absolute opposite in Goku's life-affirmed ki, began to transform. Slowly at first, then accelerating, the destruction wave was converted back into neutral energy that dissipated harmlessly. "No," Archimonde breathed, for the first time showing something that might have been fear. That spell required the accumulated power of thousands of sacrificed souls. You cannot simply unmake it. Goku turned to face the Eridar, his eyes hard despite his friendly nature. "I just did. Your fell magic, your death magic, your void corruption, they all have the same weakness. They're fundamentally opposed to life, and my ki is life energy at its purest. You can't win a war of attrition against me, not when your attacks keep getting purified." Archimonde realized the truth of it. This outsider was a hard counter to everything the Burning Legion represented. Fell corruption, their primary weapon, was useless. Overwhelming destructive force was being contained and nullified. Even tactical genius and eons of experience couldn't overcome such a fundamental disadvantage. The Eritor Lord made a decision that surprised everyone monitoring the battle. He teleported back to his demon army and opened a massive portal to retreat. "You have proven your worth, outsider," Archimonde announced, his pride evident even in retreat. "Sargeras will hear of this day. The Burning Legion will not forget Son Goku." With that, the demons withdrew, leaving Azure-Mist Isle battered but intact. Goku powered down completely, the exhaustion of maintaining that barrier, while at Super Saiyan 2 finally catching up to him. He descended to the ground where Prophet Velen waited with healers and warriors, all of them staring at him with expressions of disbelief. "You faced Archimonde the Defiler and survived," Velen said quietly. "More than survived, you forced him to retreat. In all my years, across all my visions, I have never seen anyone accomplish such a feat alone." Goku managed a tired smile. He was really strong, probably one of the toughest opponents I've faced since coming here, but he relied too much on his corruption magic. If he'd focused more on physical combat and strategy, it might have gone differently. This casual assessment of a battle that would be sung about in legend made several of the Draenei warriors shake their heads in disbelief. To Goku, this had been a challenging but not overwhelming fight. To them, it was the kind of miracle that defined Eris. News of Archimonde's retreat spread across Azeroth faster than any messenger could travel. In Stormwind, King Anduin convened an emergency session of Alliance leaders. In Orgrimmar, War Chief Sylvanas called together the Horde Council. Even the neutral factions like the Cenarian Circle and Earthen Ring sent representatives to discuss what this development meant. For the first time in living memory, the Burning Legion had been forced to retreat not by armies or ancient magics, but by a single warrior. The political implications were staggering. Factions that had been bitter enemies found themselves asking the same question. Could they afford not to ally with this outsider? But Goku remained blissfully unaware of the political machinations his victory had sparked. After recovering from the battle with Archimonde, he'd made his way to Pandaria, drawn by the monk's reputation for martial arts mastery and inner peace. The continent of Pandaria had been hidden from the rest of Azeroth for thousands of years by magical mists, only recently revealed. Its people, the Pandaren, had developed a unique philosophy centered on balance and harmony, combined with devastating martial arts techniques. Master Shang-Chi welcomed Goku to the Wandering Isle, a massive turtle that served as a training ground for young Pandaren monks. "We have heard tales of your battles," Shang-Chi said, his weathered face showing both curiosity and caution. "Power that shakes mountains and defeats demon lords. Yet you come here seeking to learn from us. Why?" Goku's answer was characteristically straightforward. "Because raw power isn't everything. You guys have been perfecting martial arts for thousands of years, and your techniques focus on balance and inner strength. That's exactly what I need to work on." This humility from someone who could fight demon lords impressed Shang-Chi deeply. "Very well. But know that our training is not about destruction or overwhelming force. It is about harmony. Understanding the flow of chi and knowing when not to fight is as important as knowing how to fight." Goku nodded eagerly. "That sounds like what Whis has been trying to teach me." "I'm all ears." The training that followed was unlike anything Goku had experienced before. Pandaren martial arts emphasized fluid motion, redirecting an opponent's force rather than meeting it head-on. Their meditation techniques focused on achieving perfect balance between body, mind, and spirit. Master Shang-Chi taught him about the concept of Qi, which, while different from Ki, shared enough similarities that Goku could understand and begin to incorporate the principles. "Your Ki is powerful but turbulent," Shang-Chi observed during a meditation session. "Like a raging river, our Qi is calm, like a still pond that reflects the sky perfectly. Both have their place, but you could benefit from learning stillness." Over weeks of training, something remarkable happened. Goku began to integrate Pandaren techniques with his own fighting style. His movements became more efficient, wasting less energy. His ki control improved, allowing him to maintain transformations longer with less strain. Most significantly, he learned to achieve a state of mental calm even in the midst of battle, something that would have enormous implications for accessing his higher forms. It was during one of these training sessions that Goku felt a familiar energy signature, faint but unmistakable. His head snapped toward the sky, ki sense straining to confirm what he was feeling. "That's impossible," he whispered. "That feels like Bulma's technology, but it can't be. I'm in a completely different universe." Master Shang-Chi noticed his student's distraction. "You sense something?" Goku stood, his excitement building. "I think someone from my universe is trying to reach me. It's weak, probably because of the dimensional barrier, but it's definitely there." He focused all his energy on that distant signal, using the instant transmission technique not to teleport, but simply to reach out, to make himself more detectable across the cosmic divide. In a laboratory somewhere in Universe 7, Bulma's dimensional scanner suddenly went haywire, detecting a response to her searching. She'd been working non-stop since Goku's disappearance, using every bit of Capsule Corp technology, and even consulting with Weiss to try to locate her missing friend. "I've got something," Bulma shouted to Vegeta, who had been training nearby, refusing to admit how worried he was about Kakarot's disappearance. "The scanner's picking up Goku's energy signature, but it's coming from outside our dimensional framework entirely. He's not just in another part of Universe 7, he's in a completely different reality." Vegeta approached, his expression carefully neutral. "Can you bring him back?" Bulma's excitement dimmed slightly. "That's the problem. I can detect him now, but creating a stable portal across that kind of distance would require energy levels we just don't have. Even the Dragon Balls might not be able to manage it." Back on Azeroth, Goku felt the connection solidify then fade, like someone trying to grab his hand across an impossible distance. But it had been enough. His friends knew he was alive, and they were working on a way to bring him home. The knowledge filled him with renewed determination. In the meantime, there was still much to learn and many people to protect. His training with the Pandaren was interrupted by an urgent summons from Dalaran. Khadgar's message, delivered via magical projection, was brief but concerning. "Goku, we need you immediately. Something has emerged from a cavern in Silithus. The old gods are making their move." When Goku arrived in Silithus via Jaina's portal, he found himself facing a landscape transformed by cosmic horror. The desert region had been peaceful, or as peaceful as anywhere on Azeroth could be, but now a massive sword of dark metal pierced the planet's surface. This was Sargeras's final strike. The Dark Titan's blade thrust into Azeroth as he was being imprisoned by the Pantheon, a last desperate attempt to kill the world's soul within the planet. But the sword had done more than wound Azeroth. It had cracked open caverns that led deep into the planet's core, and from those caverns emerged the servants of In-Zoth. The old god, sensing opportunity in Azeroth's injury, was making his bid for freedom. Goku stood with Azeroth's champions at the edge of a massive chasm. Below, they could see eyes opening in the darkness, each one larger than a building. Whispers assaulted their minds, promises of power, revelations of cosmic truth, and threats of madness for those who resisted. N'Zoth himself, Magni Bronzebeard, the speaker for Azeroth who maintained a connection to the world's soul, said grimly. "He's been imprisoned down there since the Titans first came to Azeroth. If he breaks free completely, the corruption will spread across the entire planet in days." Goku could feel the old god's power, vast and alien, fundamentally opposed to everything natural. It reminded him of the kind of existential threat Majin Buu had posed, something that could simply unmake life on a planetary scale. "So we need to stop him from getting out," Goku said simply. "What's the plan?" Jaina looked at him with an expression that mixed hope and despair. "There is no plan that we know will work. Every time the old gods have been directly confronted in the past, it's risked destroying Azeroth itself. They're so deeply connected to the planet that killing them might kill the world's soul." Khadgar added, "The Titans tried to completely destroy the old gods once. The resulting damage nearly broke the planet. That's why the remaining old gods were imprisoned rather than eliminated. But N'Zoth has been working for thousands of years to weaken his prison. Now, with Sargeras' sword destabilizing everything, he's closer to freedom than ever. Goku thought about this carefully, remembering his communion with Azeroth's world soul. What if we don't kill him? What if we just remove him? Everyone stared at the Saiyan. Remove him? Anduin asked. What does that mean? Goku explained his thinking. When I fought that Death Knight and the Void Emissary, I didn't just destroy them. I purified the Death and Void magic, separating it from the living energy. If N'Zoth is connected to Azeroth like a parasite, maybe I can use the same principle to separate him from the planet without killing either one. Velen's eyes widened. You would need to channel Azeroth's own life force while simultaneously containing N'Zoth's void corruption. The energy requirements would be astronomical, and the precision required. He trailed off. Then his expression shifted as prophetic vision took hold. It could work. I see a path, narrow and fraught with danger, but possible. Magni spoke, his stone-formed body resonating with the planet's voice. Azeroth herself is willing to lend her strength. She remembers your kindness, Goku. She trusts ye. The decision was made quickly, because they had no alternative. Every hour N'Zoth remained close to freedom was another hour his corruption spread. A coalition of Azeroth's most powerful heroes assembled, not to fight directly, but to support Goku's attempt. Druids led by Malfurion would channel natural magic to stabilize the planet during the extraction. Priests and paladins would create barriers of light to contain void energy. Shamans led by Thrall would work with the elements to prevent catastrophic environmental damage. Mages would maintain the structural integrity of reality itself, preventing the space where N'Zoth existed from collapsing. And Goku would be the instrument of separation, using his ki enhanced by Azeroth's life force to extract the old god from the planet like removing a tumor. They descended into the chasm, past layers of corrupted rock and ancient Titan machinery that had failed to contain the old god. The whispers grew stronger with each step, N'Zoth attempting to break their minds before they could threaten him. But Goku's mental discipline, enhanced by Pandaren meditation techniques, allowed him to push through the assault. The others struggled more, even mighty heroes feeling their sanity fray at the edges. Finally, they reached the prison chamber, a space that existed partially outside normal reality. And there, bound by Titan chains but clearly working to break free, was N'Zoth the Corruptor. The old god was indescribable in its totality. Every observer saw something different, their mind translating the cosmic horror into forms it could process. Goku saw a mass of tentacles and eyes and mouths, constantly shifting, growing, consuming itself, and regenerating in endless cycles. But more than the physical form, he sensed the void energy, so much of it that it created a gravity well in the spiritual plane, pulling at thoughts and dreams, insanity itself. The outsider comes. N'Zoth's voice was all voices and no voice, speaking directly into minds. The anomaly who thinks he can defy cosmic order. You are nothing, small being. I have existed since before your universe formed. I will exist long after it ends. Goku transformed directly to Super Saiyan 2, knowing he'd need that level of power from the start. Maybe you've existed a long time, but that doesn't make you right. You're a parasite, and I'm going to remove you from this planet. He reached out, not just with his ki sense, but with the connection he'd formed to Azeroth's world soul during his communion in Moonglade. Immediately, he felt the planet's life force flowing to him. Green natural magic mixing with his golden ki to create that hybrid energy he'd first discovered fighting the Void Emissary. The power was immense, like trying to channel an ocean through a straw, but Goku held firm. N'Zoth attacked immediately, tentacles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously lashing out. Where they touched, reality cracked. Void energy poured from the wounds in space, attempting to corrupt Goku's ki network, but the Saiyan had learned from his previous encounters. His ki didn't just resist corruption, it actively purified it. Each tentacle that touched him found itself burning with life energy, forced back to its source. Impossible. N'Zoth's certainty wavered for the first time in eons. You are mortal. You cannot wield a world soul's power. The energy should destroy you. Goku gritted his teeth, his body straining under the incredible forces flowing through him. I've trained my whole life to push past my limits. This is just another limit to break. He began the separation process, his Kai-enhanced senses allowing him to distinguish between N'Zoth's void corruption and Azeroth's natural energy. It was like untangling two different colored threads that had been woven together for millennia. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to pull them apart. N'Zoth thrashed, the old god's panic palpable as he felt himself being disconnected from the planet he'd infected so long ago. No, I am eternal. I am inevitable. I have woven my being into every shadow, every doubt, every dark thought on this world. You cannot separate me without destroying everything. But Goku continued, and the supporting heroes did their part. Malfurion's nature magic held the planet's wounds closed as N'Zoth was extracted. The priests and paladins contained the bursts of void energy that erupted from the disconnection points. Thrall and the shamans kept the elements from going berserk as fundamental forces were rebalanced, and Jaina led the mages in preventing reality from simply giving up and collapsing under the metaphysical strain. Hours passed like minutes, and minutes felt like hours. Goku's body began to show signs of the strain, his Super Saiyan form flickering as his energy reserves depleted. But he couldn't stop, not when he was so close. Finally, with a sound like reality itself sighing in relief, the last connection between N'Zoth and Azeroth severed. The old god, for the first time in millennia, existed as a separate entity rather than an integral part of the planet. Now Goku gasped, his strength nearly exhausted. Someone needs to contain him before he tries to reconnect. Velen stepped forward, along with the other most powerful light wielders present. Together, they wove a prison of pure light energy, the absolute opposite of void corruption. N'Zoth screamed, a sound that shattered stone and drove lesser beings mad, but the prison held. This won't last forever, Velen warned. The light prison will contain him for now, but we need a permanent solution. Khadgar was already working on calculations. If we can open a rift to the twisting nether, we could banish him there. It's the space between worlds, where demons go when they die in the material realm. An old god trapped there would be isolated from any world to corrupt. Goku had recovered enough to speak. Do it, and if you need extra power to open the rift, I can help. Together, the mages and Goku combined their efforts, arcane magic and ki working in concert to tear open a portal to the twisting nether. The swirling chaos beyond was visible, a realm where physical laws were suggestions and reality was fluid. They pushed N'Zoth's light-bound form through the portal, and as the old god passed beyond the veil, his final words echoed in every mind present. This changes nothing. The void is infinite. We are legion. One day, all will be consumed. Then he was gone, and the portal sealed behind him. The silence that followed was profound. Slowly, the assembled heroes began to realize what they'd accomplished. One of the old gods, beings that had plagued Azeroth since its formation, had been permanently removed. Not killed, which would have risked the planet itself, but extracted and banished. Magni's voice, carrying Azeroth's own gratitude, spoke with reverence. The world soul gives her thanks. For the first time in endless ages, she can dream without N'Zoth's whispers poisoning her thoughts. Goku smiled tiredly. I'm glad we could help. Though I've got to admit, that was way harder than fighting Archimonde. At least with him, I just had to punch until he gave up. The casual comparison made several people laugh despite their exhaustion. Only Goku would describe extracting an old god and battling a demon lord as comparable challenges with different difficulty levels. As they made their way back to the surface, they found Silithus transformed. Where N'Zoth's influence had spread corruption and madness, now there was simply desert. Harsh and unforgiving perhaps, but natural. The planet was already beginning to heal the wounds caused by both Sargeras' sword and the old god's presence. Back in Stormwind, a celebration was held that rivaled any in the kingdom's history. Alliance and Horde representatives attended together, the shared victory over N'Zoth creating bonds that might lead to lasting peace. Goku found himself at the center of attention, a position he'd never been comfortable with. "I just did what anyone would do," he protested when yet another hero came to offer thanks. "You guys did most of the work supporting the extraction." Anduin, who had been observing Goku throughout the celebration, approached with 2 mugs of ale. "You have a remarkable ability to remain humble despite accomplishing the impossible regularly. It's a quality I'm trying to learn as king." Goku accepted the drink, though alcohol had never affected him the way it did normal humans. "Being strong doesn't make you better than anyone else. I've met lots of people who aren't as powerful as me, but are smarter, kinder, or more skilled in ways I'll never be. Power is just one type of strength." This philosophy, so different from the might makes right attitudes prevalent in much of Azeroth, was part of why Goku had become so influential despite his short time on the planet. As the celebration wound down, Khadgar approached Goku with news. "The Kirin Tor has been analyzing the energy signature from your universe that you detected. We believe we can amplify it, potentially even establish a two-way communication." Goku's expression lit up. "Really? When can we try?" Within days, another ritual was prepared, this one far more complex than any previous attempt. The entire Kirin Tor Council participated, along with shamans who could sense energy across vast distances, and priests who could channel light as a carrier wave for messages. Goku sat at the center of a massive arcane circle, his ki flowing through carefully designed channels that amplified and directed it across dimensional barriers. When the ritual reached its peak, the connection established with crystal clarity. For a brief moment, Goku could see his friends as clearly as if they were in the same room. Bulma stood at her computer array, Vegeta lurking nearby trying to pretend he didn't care, Gohan and Goten watching with hope and worry. And in the background, even Beerus and Whis had come to observe. "Goku!" Bulma's voice came through, distorted but audible. "Can you hear us? Bulma! Everyone! I'm okay!" Goku's voice carried across dimensional boundaries. "I'm trapped in another universe, but the people here are helping me find a way home." The limited time of the connection forced rapid exchanges of information. Bulma explained the progress she'd made on dimensional travel technology, how she'd been working with scientists from across Universe 7, and even consulted with the Galactic Patrol. Goku shared what he'd learned about Azeroth's cosmic structure, the information potentially valuable for understanding how to bridge the gap. Vegeta pushed his way into view, his expression stern but his concern evident. "Kakarot, when you get back, we're settling who's stronger once and for all. I've been training non-stop since you disappeared." Goku grinned. "I've been training too, Vegeta. I learned some new techniques from the people here. It's going to be a great fight." The connection began to fade, the massive energy requirements exceeding even the Kirin Tor's capacity to maintain. In the final moments, Goku called out, "Tell Chi-Chi and everyone I love them, and don't worry, I'll find a way home." Then the link broke, leaving Goku sitting in the ritual circle with tears streaming down his face. He'd been on Azeroth for months now, and while the people here had become friends, nothing could replace his actual family. Jaina placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll get you home, Goku. That's a promise." Over the following weeks, the Kirin Tor worked tirelessly on the dimensional portal technology. They combined Bulma's specifications, transmitted during that brief contact, with Azeroth's own understanding of portal magic. The project consumed resources at a staggering rate, requiring cooperation between Alliance, Horde, and neutral factions. But there was universal agreement. Getting Goku home was worth any cost, both because he deserved it and because they couldn't in good conscience keep someone separated from their family. While the portal was being constructed, Goku continued to help where he was needed. He assisted the Earthen Ring in healing the wounds Sargeras's sword had left in Azeroth's surface. He trained with various martial orders, sharing his techniques while learning theirs. He even spent time with the Bronze Dragonflight, dragons who controlled time, learning how their perception of temporal flow could enhance his combat precognition. It was during one of these training sessions with Chromie, a gnome-formed bronze dragon, that Goku learned something troubling about his effect on Azeroth's timeline. Your presence here has created what we call a temporal anomaly, Chromie explained, manipulating holographic timelines that showed branching possibilities. In the original flow of time, the events you participated in went very differently. The battle with Veltharos would have consumed the Borean tundra. Archimonde's assault would have destroyed the Exodar. N'Zoth would still be imprisoned but growing stronger. Your intervention changed all of that. Goku looked at the altered timelines with concern. Is that bad? Did I mess something up? Chromie shook her head. Not bad, just different. The future is always in flux, but you've created changes of such magnitude that entire probability trees have been pruned or grown. When you leave, assuming we successfully return you to your universe, the timeline should stabilize around the new reality you helped create. This raised an important question that Goku hadn't fully considered. What would happen to Azeroth after he left? Would they be able to defend against threats without his intervention? As if sensing his concern, Thrall approached that evening with Anduin, Jaina, and several other leaders. We need to discuss what happens after you return home, Thrall said seriously. You've become a critical part of Azeroth's defense, whether intentionally or not. We need to ensure we can stand on our own when you're gone. Anduin added, more than that, we need to make sure we've learned from you. Not just your techniques, though those are valuable, but your philosophy. The way you seek to understand opponents before fighting them, how you give even enemies chances to change, your belief that growth and improvement are always possible. Goku appreciated their foresight. I'm glad you're thinking about this. You guys are strong, way stronger than you give yourselves credit for. And you've got magic and abilities I could never learn. The key is working together and not giving up no matter how tough things get. Over the next weeks, Goku worked intensively with various groups to pass on as much knowledge as he could. He taught monks how to sense and manipulate their internal energy more efficiently. He showed warriors how to read an opponent's movements to predict attacks. He helped mages understand how concentration and mental discipline could enhance spell precision. Most importantly, he trained a group of younger heroes who would carry forward his teachings after he left. Among them was a human warrior named Andras who showed particular aptitude for key manipulation. A night elf hunter named Shaleth who could already sense energy flows through her connection to nature, and surprisingly, a forsaken rogue named Matthias who proved that undead could generate life energy if they focused on the spark of will that animated them rather than the death magic that sustained their bodies. You three are going to be the foundation, Goku told them during a training session. You understand the principles of Ki even if you can't match a Saiyan's power. Teach others, experiment, find ways to blend Ki principles with your world's magic. That's how Azeroth gets stronger. The day finally came when the dimensional portal was ready. It stood in a specially prepared chamber in Dalaran, a massive ring covered in both arcane runes and technological components built from Bulma's specifications. Every major faction had contributed resources or expertise to the project. Goku stood before the portal, surrounded by the friends he'd made on Azeroth. Anduin presented him with a gift, a tabard bearing a unique emblem that combined Alliance and Horde symbols with a golden star, representing Goku's status as a protector of all Azeroth. Jaina gave him a magical crystal that would allow one final communication across dimensions if it was ever needed, a one-time emergency beacon. Thrall offered a weapon, Doomhammer's sister hammer, crafted by the same legendary blacksmiths, but infused with natural magic rather than elemental fury. Velen blessed him with words of prophecy speaking of a future where the lessons Goku had taught would help Azeroth face threats not yet emerged. Master Shang-Chi presented a scroll containing advanced Pandaren martial arts techniques, noting that even in Goku's universe, there was always more to learn. Even Sylvanas, who had initially viewed Goku with suspicion, offered a grudging acknowledgement. You showed that even the undead deserve consideration as individuals rather than monsters to be purged. For that, the Forsaken are grateful. Goku accepted each gift with genuine appreciation, though he knew the connections he'd formed were worth more than any physical objects. "I'm going to miss you guys," he said, his emotions evident. "Azeroth is an amazing place, and you're all incredible people. If there's ever a way to visit again, I will." Khadgar activated the portal, and the device thrummed with power as it began to pierce dimensional barriers. The energy required was staggering, drawing from ley lines across the continent, but the calculations held. A swirling vortex of blue-white energy stabilized, and through it, Goku could sense the familiar energy patterns of Universe 7. "It's working," Bulma's voice came through from the other side. "Goku, we can see you. Come through." Goku took a step toward the portal, then paused. He turned back to face everyone assembled. "Before I go, I want you all to remember something. You don't need me to be heroes. You never did. You're strong enough to protect your world. Believe in yourselves the way I believe in you." With those final words, Son Goku stepped through the portal and vanished from Azeroth, returning to his own universe after months of adventures in a cosmos that operated on entirely different rules. The portal collapsed behind him, the energy requirements too great to maintain longer than necessary. In Universe 7, Goku materialized in Bulma's laboratory to a chorus of cheers. His friends and family surrounded him, relief and joy palpable. Chi-Chi was simultaneously crying and yelling at him for making her worry. Gohan and Goten nearly tackled him with their hugs. Even Vegeta, maintaining his pride, gave a small nod that conveyed more than words could. "Welcome home, Goku," Bulma said, smiling through her own tears. "We missed you." As Goku caught up with his family and began to settle back into his normal life, he found himself changed by the experience. The techniques he'd learned from Pandaren monks enhanced his Ultra Instinct training. The mental discipline from resisting old god corruption strengthened his mind. The philosophy of balance and harmony he'd absorbed gave him new perspectives on power and responsibility. But more than any technique or ability, Goku carried back the memory of a world that had faced impossible odds but never surrendered. Azeroth had taught him that heroism came in many forms, and that sometimes the greatest strength was not in overwhelming power, but in the refusal to give up hope. Meanwhile, on Azeroth, life continued. The portal's closure left a sense of melancholy among those who had known Goku, but also determination. They had learned from the Golden Warrior, not just his techniques, but his spirit. The younger heroes Goku had trained directly began teaching others, creating a new tradition of martial arts that blended key principles with Azeroth's magic. Within a year, there were key-enhanced paladins whose light abilities were amplified by internal energy, druids who could transform more efficiently by understanding the flow of life force, warriors who could predict enemy movements by sensing hostile intent, mages whose spells were more precise due to enhanced mental discipline. The Way of the Golden Star, as it came to be called, spread across both Alliance and Horde territories. It wasn't worship of Goku. He would have hated that, but rather an evolution of combat philosophy that honored what he'd taught them. When new threats emerged, as they inevitably did on Azeroth, the defenders found themselves better prepared. A Twilight's Hammer cult attempting to summon another old god was stopped by heroes who could resist void corruption more effectively. A Burning Legion infiltration was uncovered when Kai-trained guards sensed the feel energy signatures demons couldn't fully mask. An undead uprising was quelled with techniques that purified death magic without destroying the Forsaken who retained their free will. Azeroth was learning to stand stronger, not because an outsider protected them, but because that outsider had shown them they were capable of protecting themselves. Years passed on Azeroth, though due to the time dilation between universes, only months passed in Universe 7. Goku's legend grew into myth, stories told to children about the golden warrior who fell from the sky and taught heroes how to be better. Some details were exaggerated, others forgotten, but the core message remained. Strength came not from power alone, but from the will to protect others and the determination to keep improving. In Stormwind's library, scholars documented everything known about Ki and how it related to Azeroth's magic. In Orgrimmar's warrior quarters, trainers taught students to sense energy flow. In Pandaria, the Pandaren monks created new katas that incorporated principles Goku had demonstrated. His influence had become woven into Azeroth's culture in ways both obvious and subtle. And sometimes, on clear nights when warriors trained under the stars, they would look up and wonder about that other universe where their friend had returned. They would remember his smile, his enthusiasm for a good fight, his unwavering moral compass, and his genuine belief that people could always choose to be better. The crystal Jaina had given Goku remained unused in his home, a one-time emergency beacon that he kept safe but hoped never to need. It represented a connection between universes, a reminder that somewhere out in the infinite multiverse, there was a world he'd helped save and friends who would always remember him. In both universes, life moved forward. Goku continued his training, now incorporating everything he'd learned on Azeroth into his ever-evolving fighting style. When he sparred with Vegeta, the Saiyan Prince noticed the changes immediately. "Your movements are different," Vegeta observed during a break in their fight. "More efficient, less wasted energy. What happened to you in that other universe?" Goku smiled. "I met some incredible martial artists and learned that there's always room to improve, no matter how strong you get. Want to see some of the techniques I picked up?" Their sparring intensified, and Goku demonstrated how Pandaren principles of flow and redirection could enhance even Super Saiyan combat. Vegeta, never one to be left behind, began studying the concepts himself, adapting them to his own fighting style. Whis, watching from above with Beerus, nodded approvingly. It seems Goku's time away wasn't wasted. He's integrated new perspectives into his combat philosophy. That's the mark of a true martial artist. Beerus yawned, feigning disinterest but secretly impressed. As long as he hasn't forgotten how to make decent food. Speaking of which, when is lunch? As months became years in Goku's universe, the memory of Azeroth never fully faded. It had become part of who he was, another chapter in his endless journey of growth and discovery. He had faced gods and demons, heroes and villains, all while learning that courage and kindness transcended dimensional boundaries. Sometimes, during quiet moments, Goku would power up and look at his Super Saiyan reflection, remembering how that golden transformation had seemed miraculous to Azeroth's inhabitants. It reminded him that power was relative. What seemed impossible in one context was achievable with proper training in another. The experience had reinforced his fundamental belief that everyone had potential for greatness if given the right opportunity and guidance. On Azeroth, new generations grew up hearing stories of the Golden Warrior as legend rather than history. Some historians questioned whether he truly existed or was merely an allegorical figure created to inspire hope during dark times. But those who had fought beside him knew the truth. In the fortress of Hera, Robute Gilliman. Wait, that was Warhammer, not Warcraft. Let me correct that. In Stormwind Keep, King Anduin kept a private journal documenting everything he'd learned from Goku's time on Azeroth. Leadership lessons about staying true to your principles even when it was difficult, about the importance of giving even enemies chances to change, about how true strength included knowing when not to fight. These lessons guided his rule as he worked to create lasting peace between Alliance and Horde. In Orgrimmar, the aging Thrall taught his children about the outsider who had shown that honor and strength could coexist with mercy and wisdom. The former war chief had taken many lessons from Goku's example, particularly about leadership being service rather than domination. In Dalaran's libraries, the collected works on key theory and dimensional mechanics filled entire sections, studied by mages who sought to understand how energy could exist independent of cosmic forces. Some made breakthroughs that revolutionized magical theory, while others spent lifetimes chasing concepts that only made sense in other universal frameworks. But the pursuit itself was valuable, pushing Azeroth's understanding of reality further than it had ever reached. The three students Goku had personally trained became legendary in their own right. Andras the Radiant mastered a fighting style that blended warrior techniques with ki enhancement, creating a new class of martial combatant that Azeroth had never seen before. His ability to sense killing intent made him nearly impossible to ambush, and his strikes carried force that belied his mortal frame. Shaleth Starweaver combined her Night Elf connection to nature with ki principles, becoming a ranger whose arrows could pierce magical barriers by infusing them with pure life energy. She established a school in Teldrassil, teaching the next generation how to blend the old ways with new understanding. Matthias the Undying proved the most remarkable case. A Forsaken who through sheer determination learned to generate ki despite technically being undead. His existence challenged fundamental assumptions about life and death, proving that will and consciousness could transcend physical state. He became an advocate for his people, demonstrating that the Forsaken were truly alive in the ways that mattered most. These three and their students ensured that Goku's legacy lived on in practical application rather than just memory. When new threats arose, Azeroth's defenders faced them with techniques and philosophies that the Golden Warrior had introduced. The world grew stronger not because it depended on external salvation, but because it had learned to cultivate strength from within. Years turned to decades on Azeroth, and the immediate memory of Goku began to fade into history. But the changes he'd inspired became permanent features of the world. The way of the Golden Star was taught in training halls across every continent. The philosophical principle that power should serve others rather than dominate them became more widely accepted, even among factions that had previously glorified strength for its own sake. Some historians began to question the more fantastic elements of the stories. Surely no single being could have banished Archimonde, extracted N'Zoth, and defeated countless other threats, as the legends claimed. But those who had been there, who had witnessed the impossible made real, knew better. They kept the true accounts, passing them down to trusted students, ensuring that future generations would understand what Goku had really represented. Not an unbeatable savior who solved all problems, but a teacher who showed them they had the strength to save themselves. In Universe 7, Goku continued to grow stronger, but the lessons from Azeroth never left him. When facing the next cosmic threat, he remembered how Azeroth's heroes had worked together despite their differences. When training Oob or other students, he applied teaching methods he'd learned from Master Shang-Chi. When confronting morally gray situations, he thought about how Azeroth's complex factions had taught him that good and evil weren't always clearly defined. The experience had matured him in ways that pure combat training never could. He'd seen a world where hope persisted despite overwhelming darkness, where different peoples could unite against common threats, where heroes were defined by their choices rather than their power levels. One day, many years after his return, Goku was training with Vegeta when a strange energy signature appeared in the sky. Both Saiyans looked up, instantly on guard, but what descended was neither enemy nor threat. It was a small rift in space, barely large enough for an object to pass through, and from it fell a single scroll wrapped in pristine preservation magic. Goku caught it mid-air, immediately recognizing the energy signature. "This is from Azeroth," he breathed, carefully unwrapping the scroll. The message inside was written in multiple languages, some he recognized from his time there, others translated by magic to be readable by him specifically. It was signed by the Council of Tirisfal, Azeroth's secret society of mages dedicated to defending their world. The scroll read, "To Son Goku, champion of Azeroth and friend across stars. Decades have passed in our world since your departure. Those of us who knew you personally grow old, but your legacy thrives in the young. Azeroth faces challenges still, but we face them with strength you helped us discover. This message comes with two purposes. First, to thank you once more and inform you that your teachings have borne fruit beyond imagining. The way of the Golden Star is practiced across all factions. Your students have trained thousands. The principles you demonstrated have changed how we approach conflict and growth. Second, to fulfill a promise made by Prophet Velen before his passing, he foresaw that you might one day need Azeroth's aid as we once needed yours. This scroll contains a beacon. If you face a threat beyond your capacity to handle alone, one that threatens your entire universe, activate the beacon. We cannot send armies across dimensional barriers, but we can send knowledge, magical support, and perhaps a few of our strongest champions for a limited time. You taught us that true strength comes from friendship and cooperation across all boundaries. Let this scroll be proof that such bonds endure even across the infinite multiverse. May you continue to grow ever stronger, and may our worlds remain forever friends. Signed, the Council of Tirisfal, the High King of the Alliance, the War Chief of the Horde, the Kirin Tor, the Cenarion Circle, and all free peoples of Azeroth. Goku read the message 3 times, his eyes misting slightly. Even across dimensions and decades, the friends he'd made hadn't forgotten him. More than that, they'd grown strong enough to offer help in return. Sentimental fools. Vegeta muttered, but his tone lacked real bite. Even he could recognize the value of such an alliance. What kind of power could that magic-heavy world possibly send that would help us? Goku carefully rolled up the scroll. You'd be surprised, Vegeta. Their magic works on completely different principles than Ki. Something that might resist energy attacks could be vulnerable to their light or nature magic. And their greatest champions are no joke. They've fought threats that would challenge even us. He tucked the scroll safely away, knowing he'd probably never use it. Goku preferred to solve problems with his own power, but grateful to have it nonetheless. The knowledge that Azeroth stood ready to help if needed was worth more than any technique or power boost. As Goku and Vegeta resumed their training, the Saiyan warrior couldn't help but smile. His unexpected journey to Azeroth had started as a crisis, being thrown into an unknown universe with no way home. But it had become something more, a chance to grow, to learn, to teach, and to forge bonds that transcended reality itself. The multiverse was vast beyond comprehension, filled with infinite worlds and possibilities. But Goku had learned something crucial during his time away. No matter how different the universe, certain truths remained constant. The desire to protect loved ones, the drive to improve oneself, the courage to face impossible odds, and the hope that tomorrow could be better than today. These things existed everywhere, in every reality, binding all heroes together regardless of their origin. In both Universe 7 and on Azeroth, life continued its eternal dance. Threats emerged and were overcome. Heroes rose and eventually fell, their teachings passing to new generations. But the connection between worlds, forged in battle and sealed in friendship, remained an invisible thread linking 2 universes that had briefly touched. And sometimes, on quiet nights when Goku looked up at the stars, he would think about that other sky above Azeroth. He'd remember the friends who had helped him, the students he'd taught, the world he'd briefly called home, and he'd know that somewhere out in the infinite cosmos, they were looking up at their own stars and remembering him too. The story of Goku's arrival in Azeroth became legend in both worlds. On Azeroth, it was the tale of the Golden Warrior who fell from the sky and taught heroes to believe in themselves. In Universe 7, it became another chapter in Goku's endless saga of adventures and growth. But the truth, known fully only to those who had lived it, was simpler and more profound. It was a story about how strength could bridge any gap, how kindness could transcend any boundary, and how the bonds of friendship could connect even the most distant of universes. Years later, when Goku achieved even greater transformations and faced even more powerful opponents. He would sometimes tap into techniques he'd learned on Azeroth. The mental clarity of Pandaren meditation enhanced his Ultra Instinct. The energy sensing methods improved his predictive abilities. The philosophical lessons about balance and purpose guided his growth toward true mastery. Every opponent he faced, from mortal warriors to literal gods, received the same respect and opportunity for growth that Goku had learned to give during his time on Azeroth. He'd seen firsthand how even beings corrupted by cosmic forces could find redemption if given a chance, how enemies could become allies, how the seemingly irredeemable could choose to change. This wisdom, combined with his natural Saiyan love of battle and his earth-raised compassion, made Goku into something unique in all of Universe 7. Not just a powerful warrior, but a true martial artist who understood that fighting was about more than just winning. It was about growth, understanding, and the connections forged through honest combat. In the Tournament of Power and beyond, these lessons would prove invaluable. When facing Kirin, Goku remembered how he'd overcome Archimon by adapting rather than just overpowering. When confronting Moro, the lessons about corrupting energy from his battles with old gods and death knights informed his strategy. Each new challenge was approached with the accumulated wisdom of multiple universes. And always tucked safely away in his home, the scroll from Azeroth remained. A reminder that across the infinite expanse of the multiverse, he had friends who would answer his call if the need arose. Goku hoped that day would never come. He preferred to handle problems with his own strength, but knowing the option existed brought comfort. The emergency crystal Jaina had given him sat beside the scroll. Two artifacts connecting universes that by all rights should never have touched. Chi-Chi sometimes complained about the clutter of mysterious objects Goku accumulated from his adventures, but even she understood these were special. They represented a time when her husband had been lost, a crisis that had brought their family together in worry and relief at his return. Sometimes Gohan would ask his father about Azeroth, curious about this other universe with its different rules and magics. Goku would share stories about the battles he'd fought, the friends he'd made, and the lessons he'd learned. He'd demonstrate techniques he'd absorbed from Pandaren monks, or explain how fighting Archimon had taught him new applications of instant transmission. These conversations became precious to both of them, father and son bonding over the sharing of experiences and knowledge. Gohan, with his scholarly mind, was particularly fascinated by how Azeroth's cosmic forces differed from Universe 7's divine hierarchy. He even wrote papers theorizing about multiversal constants and variables, using his father's experiences as primary research material. Goten and Trunks, hearing the stories, would play games where they pretended to fight old gods and demon lords. Their childish imagination transformed Azeroth's grim darkness into adventure, much to Bulma and Chi-Chi's amusement. In their innocent way, the boys understood what many adults missed, that heroism was universal, transcending the specifics of any particular universe. Vegeta, though he'd never admit it publicly, was secretly pleased by Kakarot's growth during his time away. The techniques Goku had learned and integrated made their sparring sessions more interesting and challenging. The Prince of Saiyans found himself adapting to counter Pandaren style flow and redirection, which in turn improved his own fighting efficiency. In a way, Azeroth had made both of them stronger. Goku directly through his experiences there, and Vegeta indirectly by having to match his rival's improvements. Whis and Beerus, when they learned the full story, were intrigued by the concept of a universe with different fundamental forces. 6 cosmic forces rather than divine hierarchy and mortal ki. Whis mused, "How fascinating. I wonder how many other universal frameworks exist across the multiverse." Beerus was more practical in his concerns. "As long as this Azeroth place doesn't produce anyone strong enough to challenge me, I don't care about their cosmic structure. Though," he added thoughtfully, "a universe where destruction serves a necessary balancing function rather than being vilified, they might actually understand my role better than most places in our own universe." The god of destruction's observation was perceptive. Azeroth's understanding of necessary destruction, born from battles with old gods and the Burning Legion's corruption, might indeed have created a context where beings like Beerus were less controversial. It was yet another example of how different universal contexts shape philosophy and values. As the years passed and Goku's time on Azeroth receded further into memory, the experience remained foundational to who he was. It had been an adventure unlike any other, not because the opponents were necessarily stronger than what he'd faced before, though some came close, but because it had challenged him in ways beyond pure combat. He'd been forced to understand a completely different cosmic framework, to teach as much as he fought, to build alliances across species and factions that made the Alliance and Horde's historical enmity look simple by comparison. Most importantly, he'd proven to himself that the principles he valued, protecting the innocent, giving opponents chances to change, constant self-improvement, believing in others' potential, were truly universal. They'd worked on Azeroth as well as they did in Universe 7, suggesting they might work anywhere in the infinite multiverse. This realization gave Goku a deeper confidence in his path. He wasn't just following the traditions of Earth's martial artists or the Saiyan warrior code or the divine teachings of the Kais. He was following principles that transcended any single culture or universe, truths that held firm across all reality. And so the story of Goku's time on Azeroth came full circle. What had begun as an accident, a dimensional displacement caused by unknown forces during training, had become a defining chapter in his endless journey of growth. He had arrived as a lost stranger and departed as a legendary hero, leaving behind a legacy that would shape Azeroth for generations. But more than what he'd given them, Azeroth had given him something precious in return. They'd shown him that heroism flourished in the darkest places, that hope persisted against impossible odds, that different peoples could unite despite deep divisions, and that teaching others could be as fulfilling as personal improvement. These lessons, carried back to Universe 7, would influence everything Goku did going forward. In both universes, the story lived on Azeroth, as legend and inspiration, the Golden Warrior who had shown them their own strength. In Universe 7, as another chapter in the saga of Son Goku, the Saiyan raised on Earth who kept finding new ways to grow and new friends to protect. And somewhere in the spaces between universes, in the infinite possibility of the multiverse, the connection remained. Two worlds that had touched briefly but significantly, forever changed by the encounter. If the barriers between realities ever thinned again, if crisis ever forced the universes to reconnect, both worlds now had champions who understood that the greatest strength came not from power alone, but from the bonds of friendship and shared purpose. Until that day, if it ever came, both Azeroth and Universe 7 would continue their separate journeys. Heroes would rise and fall. Threats would emerge and be overcome. Life would persist in its beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable way. But neither universe would forget the lesson written in golden light across both their skies, that even in infinite darkness, hope could shine. That even against impossible odds, heroes could triumph. And that sometimes, the greatest adventures came from the most unexpected places. This was the true legacy of Goku's time on Azeroth. Not the battles won or enemies defeated, though those were significant. Not the techniques shared or students trained, though those would endure. But the simple, profound proof that across all the infinite varieties of reality, certain truths remained constant. Courage, kindness, determination, and hope were universal languages, spoken by heroes in every world. And the bonds forged in defending those values could bridge any distance, overcome any obstacle, and endure even the death of universes themselves. In the end, Son Goku had done what he always did. He'd arrived in a world that needed help, offered that help without hesitation, made friends with those around him, regardless of species or faction, trained hard to overcome the challenges he faced, and left the place better than he'd found it. That he'd done this in a completely different universe with alien cosmic forces and fundamentally different rules, only proved that his way, the way of the martial artist who fought to protect rather than dominate, was truly timeless and boundless. And so the story concludes, not with an ending, but with a continuation. Both worlds spinning forward through time, both growing stronger, both remembering the moment they touched and the warrior who made it possible. Somewhere, Son Goku trains under Earth's sun, pushing himself to new limits while cherishing the family and friends who give his strength purpose. Somewhere, Azeroth's heroes defend their world with techniques and philosophies learned from a golden warrior who fell from the sky. And somewhere in the infinite space between all realities, the possibility remains that one day, these two universes might touch again. Until then, the legend persists, told in different ways in different worlds, but always carrying the same core message, that a hero is defined not by their power, but by their choice to use that power for others. That strength without compassion is meaningless. That the will to protect and improve can move mountains, cross dimensions, and inspire generations. This is the story of what happened when Goku arrived in World of Warcraft. This is how a Saiyan warrior became a legend in another universe. This is how Azeroth learned that even in its darkest hour, hope could arrive from the most unexpected direction, wearing orange and smiling with innocent enthusiasm. And this is how Son Goku proved, once again and in a completely new context, that the greatest power in any universe is the power to never give up, to always protect others, and to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. For in the end, across all realities and all possibilities, that is what truly makes a hero.